All right, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to Eat, Train, Prosper. This is episode 198. Bryan and myself, and we are talking some of our training and nutrition plans over the short-term future here. Let's call it maybe 90 days, Bryan. Shall we do that?
Sure.
So we just haven't had a little bit of a episode of us talking about some of our upcoming goals and stuff in at length. And I know it's something from some of the listeners that we get personal questions and stuff, and I think it's just helpful. I know for some of the, I don't know, content creators or whatever kind of phrasing you would like to use for people, I like to see what their personal goals are and things as well, just to peel back the layer on the, I guess, professional side of things and get a little bit more personable. So we'll do that a bit in this episode as we talk about it. So as always, Bryan kicks us off with the updates. What do you have for me?
Yeah, Brian's feeling tired today. As we continue this trend of speaking in the third person that we were joking about earlier. I just had my birthday, I guess on Thursday, so like 5 days ago, and it's just some, trivial birthday in the 40s. I'm 43. And there were a little bit of celebrations for this really menial birthday. Went out, had a drink, ate a big steak dinner with Kim on Thursday. That was great. Saturday, we had a bunch of friends take us out for drinks downtown in Boulder. And I drank way more than I intended to drink in a really short period of time. So I woke up on Sunday morning, probably one of my worst hangovers in the last year or so, which was quite unfortunate because my plan on Sunday, I was heading up to the mountains to a place called Dillon. It's about an hour and a half from Boulder, kind of around the Continental Divide. It's beautiful. There's a awesome lake that we can like walk around and beautiful mountains everywhere. And I went up there with a buddy of mine Sunday morning to go like hike, do the whole like kind of introspective, reflective thing that I like to do on my birthday each year. And so we went up there. Luckily did not drink any alcohol, but intense conversations, a lot of good food, just kind of being on the whole time, I guess would be like a way of describing that. And I'm just tired, like from the hungover night into that day of just kind of being out in nature and introspecting, which is not energy. It is energy expensive is the way I would say that. So then last night, I got back Monday morning to Boulder, and we had this podcast this morning. And I don't know, I just never sleep well on the night before podcast because I think I have to wake up to an alarm for the first time or for the only time every week. And that's kind of weird. So anyway, I'm just in a bit of a blasé kind of thing where I don't like want to work out today, but I should because I was in the mountains for 2 days and I didn't work out. Anyway, so that's an insight into a bit of my neurotic thought here. But overall, the birthday was great. Really good to hang with friends. Really good to get into the mountains and connect with my buddy. And I guess my last update, which kind of meanders into the topic of the day, which is our training and nutrition plans going forward, is that I started doing conventional deadlifts again maybe 6 weeks ago. And this is all on the back end of that awful back injury I had in December from doing leg curls. And I thought that I was never going to deadlift again because the pain was so extensive and so long. And I'm here 8 months later. I'm here doing deadlifts again. And the other day I hit 475 and probably had a little bit left in the tank. So I actually feel like really passionate about my love of deadlifts. And you and I both, like even in the CrossFit days, deadlift was always kind of like our best of the three power lifts, I think. You were actually quite good at bench press as well. I was not so much. But deadlift was always my best of the lifts. And I've been enjoying trying to get strong again on that. So I'll go into some more details of that as we get into kind of our training and nutrition plans going forward. But just wanted to tease that I didn't think I was ever going to deadlift again. And not only am I deadlifting again, but I'm doing it at 90+% of my all-time max. And so that's been kind of motivating and exciting.
Have you found, so something like I've gone back and forth a few times, but what ends up happening is like I'll start conservatively. I'm like, all right, I'm going to start at like 315. Okay. And then I'm going to go to like 335. I'm like acclimating. And then I always found right as I start to get around like maybe 405 goes the way I think it's going to go, I start to get into that where like the core stuff happens and I'm like feeling my back and I'm like, the same problems that kind of used to plague Aaron are showing up again. And I don't know if this is worth it for me. How are you mitigating that, or are you not finding it an issue quite yet? Or
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a worry that I definitely had as well because, we used to always talk about how in the CrossFit days we would have that feeling of, the toothbrush drops and you're like, oh no, my back is so sore. Like, how am I going to get down and pick this toothbrush up type thing?
yeah.
And I didn't want that. I think that a lot of that actually came from the volume. I mean, it was certainly the intensity too, but I think a lot of it was the volume, in that you weren't just doing deadlifts for strength and perfect execution or explosive execution. It was more about just like, okay, 21, 15, 9, 315 deadlifts, let's go. And there wasn't so much paid to the form. I do have a tendency to get a little flexion in my spine when I deadlift. As you mentioned, it's a bit of a core issue, but I think it's also just naturally what my body gravitates to, because even at loads that aren't considered super heavy for me, you'll begin to see like very slight amounts of flexion in my back. But everything is still moving in unison. And that's the thing that I think is important when you assess a deadlift technique, is that as you begin to pull, you're not seeing your back turn into a question mark and then, the hips rise. And then from there, the movement kind of begins. I'm more ensuring that I'm starting the lift almost slightly flexed, so that as I begin to lift, there is no change in my position throughout the lift and the hips and the torso rise together. And so with that said, that's been like somewhat protective, but there's definitely has been like some pretty solid soreness throughout my back, which is an expectation, especially as you're lifting, 85, 90-ish percent of max. And form is just going to break down. Like nobody does a 1 RM max deadlift and everyone's like, wow, that looks just like if you were doing 225. Like it never quite looks the exact same. And so I'm okay with that too. But the thing I'm really focusing on here is that I'm doing this for strength, not for hypertrophy. And thus I'm trying to keep volume low and just focus on doing the intense work at the heavier loads. So like how you mentioned, you start at 315, then 335, and then eventually you get to 405. That's kind of the progression I took too. My first week I did 5x5 at 315. Then I think the next week it was 5x3 at 365. And then it was 3x2 at 405. And then 2x2 at 425. And then 2x1 at 455. And then the last week was 1x1 at 475. So as the weights are getting heavier, I'm doing less volume. So essentially I just have that one really big pull at 475 and then whatever goes into building up to that. And then the other thing I've been doing is I've been alternating between heavy and light weeks. So that progression I just mentioned where I was going like triples, doubles, singles, that was every other week. And then in the in-between weeks, I'd be doing, I don't know if you'd call them speed reps because they're not quite light enough to be speed reps. But the first week I did my speed, I went to 345 for triples. Then I did 365 for triples. And then last week I did 375 for triples. So those numbers are about 100 pounds below the top pull that I do in the in-between weeks. So it's been working well. I don't know. Like I actually didn't get sore at all from the 375 triples last week. And that was the first week that I had no soreness from my deadlift sets. So I think that I'm getting accustomed to it and getting a little bit of repeated bout effect.
That's great. I think the every other week is a nice added wrinkle just to give yourself just additional recovery time between those. Like it's just load exposures, like heavy load exposures in that lift.
Yeah, for sure. And then what was the other thing I was going to say? There's one more thing. I can't remember now, but we'll get into it as the episode continues. Let's shift to you. What's going on in your world? I know you got a lot of things happening right now.
So last week was our Q&A, right? We talked about that. I have had an eventful week. So I am effectively 12 days out from my show. So by the time this episode releases, I will be starting my peak week. I'll be like 5-6 days out. This was the week that we had to get me under my weight cap. So because of how the pro show is set up, the timing is different, which is less optimal or less ideal. So like I'm going to go do my weigh-in Friday night at like 6 p.m. and I have to be under my weight cap at 6 p.m. on a Friday. And then I won't be on stage until like Sunday night between like 7 and 9 p.m., which is very kind of non-ideal.
Well, doesn't that give you 2 days to kind of like build up and go above the weight cap after you've weighed in, or do you have to stay under it by Sunday as well?
I do not have to stay under it by Sunday, but it's a very different loading because as the day progresses, your body uses some of that carbohydrate, right, throughout the day. And then because my weigh-in is at 6 p.m., I can't just fast all day. Especially because for me, what we learned with my body is like last show, it took me almost 1,000 grams of carbs the day before to fill out, you know, and then the risk is the more acute your time period to load, the more opportunity there is for things to go bad.
Yeah.
So we had to get me under my weight cap. So it's like 2 weeks out. And I have to get under my weight cap, and my body weight was just like not playing ball. You know, I was just running heavier. So while you were talking, I went back through some of my notes, you know, so I am now under my weight cap. And
what is that number?
My weight cap is 98.4 kilos or 200 and I need to be under 217 pounds. So I need to be 216.9 or 98.4. Or it's 217.9. I keep getting confused. I have it saved somewhere.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks ago, right, from today, I was 227.7. Right, so I was still literally 10 pounds over my weight cap.
Yeah.
We started on Sunday, the Sunday after this, we started like Jackson was like, all right, Aaron, like we did the like, okay, drop carbs to 300 from like 450, but body weight's still just not playing ball. He's like, sucks, dude. We just got to get aggressive. Like you just, you know, you're going to have to actually experience like real dieting for the first time in your prep. And you're not going to waltz into the show on 450 grams of carbs like we did on the other ones. So yeah, whatever, dude. So the Sunday we pull last Sunday, the August 19th, or sorry, last Tuesday. I did Tuesdays to line up with that, the podcast day. I was 221.0. So that's after like 4 days of like, you know, okay, like food being lower, like body weight starting to move. I'm dropping like, you know, half a pound or so every day. That was last Tuesday, 221.1. This morning, the following Tuesday, 212.1.
And
so in 14 days, I've lost 15 pounds.
And we have to attribute a lot of that to getting sick, right?
Here's the thing. I don't honestly know because I'm going to get into the next part. Now, last Wednesday, I got Bali belly. So the day after the 21st, on the 20th. So I had my 221.0 on last Tuesday. Then I got Bali belly starting that Wednesday, and I had it for 6 days. The first 2 days were like very normal kind of textbook Bali belly, like multiple loose, like 4 loose bowels throughout the day. Like, but because I was hyper aware of it, I was just pounding fluids, taking like 5 electrolytes per day, like really trying to keep things in, but my body weight was just continuing to move. Today, fortunately, I am 100% whole again after 6 days of Bali belly. But the last 3 days were like really minor. I would have like maybe 1 loose, you know, stool per day. But I could just like, you know, when you can just feel your intestines having like a battle in there. And it just, it doesn't provide you with much confidence in what your body's doing. Um, so yesterday we were effectively waiting to refeed because my body weight was plummeting so badly. But we had to wait until I could keep my food in me, or else I'm just wasting eating all these carbs if they're just going to come out. So yesterday, Monday, was the first day that we refeed, put in 600 grams of carbs, and I woke up 1.3 pounds lower again today.
Yeah. How do you explain that?
I honestly do not know. I was like, and now the scale has turned into this, like, I'm like scared of it in the morning now, kind of, because I don't know what's going to happen anymore. So I was afraid, this morning, that I was going to, like, hey, we put all these carbs in, my stomach's doing pretty good. Am I going to jump back to 220, and then be over the weight cap? No, I was down to 212.1. So we put in another 600 grams of carbs today. And we're going to see what I'm like in the morning. And I'll message you, Bryan, and I'll let you know. But I don't think I'm going to get a significant jump. I can just see it in my physique. Like, when you can tell when the muscles are full, especially when you're so lean, you can just see the muscles pop and stuff. And I'm like posing and I'm like, there's no shoulder muscle there. And like, I'm trying to get a pump when I'm training and there's just nothing to be had. And I'm like, where are these carbs going? But they're not going to my muscles. So I think we're going to have like days of refeeding before my body weight actually starts to climb.
Well, that's a positive, man.
Decent
That's great.
amount. Yeah. So it's been very, very interesting. And then the last kind of wrinkle there, I have been waking up with an allergic reaction, and my face is all swells up and I look like a Ninja Turtle. So it happened on Sunday. I could like feel it. I'm like, oh, my eyes feel a little like puffy, but I just didn't really think anything of it. And then Jenny was like, whoa, what is wrong with your face? And I'm like, what do you mean? And we like, look, and like my eyes look like they're sunken into my head because everything else around it is like so swollen. But I think it was probably just from, who knows, maybe something of with like the belly belly, or maybe something's like in my pillow or something. So I have no idea, but hopefully that fucks off, because then I'll be under my weight cap, belly belly gone, not feeling like death moving through mud with a combination of belly belly and dieting hard to make my weight cap. And hopefully allergic reaction is gone, and then I can de-stress a little bit and actually get back to looking like I have a pretty decent physique before I make my pro debut.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you'll get there. You and Jackson will figure it out. I mean, maybe some of this stuff that's happening is a result of just a compromised immune system from getting so lean and all of that, and just doing it for so many months in a row.
Yep, I agree. I think I've been very fortunate that I have a very like resilient system, and I think I'm cracking it a little bit under just the duration of the stress and stuff. And things are like, I've never had like histamine reactions or anything. Like, I've taken antihistamines, I think maybe 3 times in my entire life, and or maybe 4 or 5 times in my entire life, and like 3 have been this past week. So
wow, it's wild.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, do you have any more updates, or can we jump into kind of what the future looks like for you?
Now let's talk about the future. I love talking about the future.
Yeah. So you have your pro debut in 12 days, and then you have no more shows planned after that. You're going to go get married, and tell me about that. What is the plan? After the pro show, what does that leave you, like a week or a week and a half before you go get married? Maybe 2 weeks.
We have like 18 days or something between actual like show day and the wedding, but I'm in Hong Kong for a number of days post show, because I like to stay and get through all my check-ins and stuff. I don't like traveling on my check-in days because it's just hell, and I just want to work and take care of my clients and stuff. And then we'll be back in Bali for only about a week, and then we fly back to the States so that we're back for the wedding about a week before the wedding.
Yeah.
So
then what's your plan? Like, after the pro debut, you have those 18 days, but you're going to have a lot of travel. You're going to be trying to get things together for the wedding. Like, is training at that point just kind of like a couple times a week, just fitting it in so you maintenance level for those 18 days?
Yeah. So I think I'm hoping that post show I get that kind of stress dump. Another thing that people don't talk about, which I always try and be super transparent, like one of the things that you do, there's a number of mechanisms that get played heading into like the very acute period before show to try and reduce like extracellular water retention. And one of those is like you pretty much suppress your estrogen, right? Um, and it's something that we as males, like you don't, as males, like your estrogen fluctuates when you're going through like puberty and stuff a little bit, and then pretty much you're just who you are, right? Obviously women have their changing in their hormone cycle, but when your estrogen's really, really low, like you don't feel. So I feel like a robot and it's not fun. So I'm very excited to actually like feel again immediate post show and then be able to like feel like those love feelings with Jenny and stuff like that. Because right now it feels very like principled, you know? For example, we're writing our own vows and I'm having a really hard time because I can't find my emotions because they're so severely blunted right now. And it's very frustrating. So I'm excited to feel post show because obviously like the AIs and stuff come out and then it all comes like flooding back like 4 days later sort of thing, or rises to a sufficient level to where you're not like bottomed out anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very much excited for that, just to feel like even emotions like proud and pride, of, man, I just did this trifecta of a season of a show, one regional, a pro card, a pro debut. Like I'm hoping that I have a decent, respectable showing. I have my goals and stuff, but I want to be able to feel like proud of myself. But right now, all I feel is just like self-induced pressure to perform it. And I can't say I'm really having fun right now. It feels very much like this is I'm in like a contractual obligation that I said I would do. I will do it to my fullest ability, but I'm very much so looking forward to that break of just being a little bit more of a human again and just getting like head above water.
Yeah. Yeah. What does that look like as far as the exogenous hormones kind of going into your body from pre-show to like where you're going to be a week or two after the show? Does that look different, or are we looking at like months down the road when it starts to look different
in terms of the type of hormones in?
Yeah, I mean, like you were talking about how after all this is over, you kind of just want to go back to like a basic TRT dose and kind of, live more of a normal life. Like, is that happening immediately, or does this happen gradually over time?
Oh no, it pretty much happens immediately. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't have to, like there's no hard and fast, like this is how you need to do it. But like the harsh compounds, for example, like Tren comes out the day after the show. There's no reason to keep that in, right? That, just helps reduce that sympathetic drive and stuff there. I will keep in testosterone and a little bit of masteron post. And that is just to help me with the water retention, because I cannot afford to put on any real amount of weight post show, because then I won't fit in my suit.
Right. Yeah.
So I can't just like pull out just to TRT, because then my estrogen systemically will get potentially rebound too high. I'll carry too much water, especially with some of the travel and stuff. And I can't let that happen, because then I won't fit in my fucking suit. So there's all these like other little things that even, like post show, people think, oh, I'm going to eat all these food places and stuff. Like I got to wait a couple more weeks still. And then you asked about training. I'm really hoping that I get a little bit of that desire back to just go in and like have fun in the gym. I'm going to go in and I want to do like 5 exercises, 1 set, 1 hard set, and move on. And I'm not going to train any arms, because my forearms and arms are the problem area in my suit. So it's just skin tight. The forearms in my suit are literally skin tight. So that's the immediate intervention plan, is like go in 2 rows, 2 pull downs, maybe a rear delt, incline press, fly press, can't do a dip. And then start training legs, 1 hard set compound, 1 hard set unilateral, 1 hard set leg extension, leg flexion, and ride off into the sunset.
is this kind of your idea just for that period between the pro show and the wedding? And then what does that what does that look like after the wedding's over and you kind of get back to more like life homeostasis?
Yeah, so I'm just gonna have like fun and kind of tease maybe some movements I want to do, and like I want to lift because I love lifting. I want to get back to where I love it, and it doesn't feel like a job, you know. So I'm gonna take probably a month of just kind of, let's call it for what it is, fucking about. I'll still train really hard, but I'm probably not gonna be like tracking things. I might keep some notes on, you know, I think, okay, I think I want this exercise in, or maybe my order, but nothing too structured, especially because we're gonna be traveling so much. I'm gonna be in Hong Kong, back here at Undefeated for a week, in Virginia, then to Utah, then back to Bali. Like, in every 5 days, I'm going to be in somewhere new for like 4 weeks. So it's not going to be able to be super, super structured. And probably immediate post wedding, I want to settle into my, or once we get into October, settle into my new plan, which is train every other day, cardio on the other days. In that, you know, which we alluded to in last week's episode, a bit of one, you know, miss day, like on the stair climber, one hit day to spike the heart rate, you know, do interval sprints, one zone 2 day. And I plan on doing all of that like pretty early in the morning, which I'm very
What
much
about
so looking forward to.
So with the other day every other day lifting, is this like your intent to go do full body, or are we alternating upper lowers, or do you not have really
Upper
that
lowers
scheduled out yet? Yeah.
Yeah.
So like a Monday upper, a Wednesday lower, a Friday upper, and then start the next week with lower.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Sweet, dude. That sounds great. And then my other question is, what do you think will happen to your body weight as you drop all of the exogenous substances off except TRT? I could see like a situation where you could be eating at maintenance or in a surplus, but you could still lose weight because of the drop of substances and the loss of muscle potentially. Like, is this what you're expecting? Like, are you expecting to lose muscle and go back down to like somewhere between where you are and where you were when you were natural? Or like, what's your expectation there?
Yeah. I have to be, such a good question. I'm glad you asked. You have to be practical, right? And I think that's where some people get into some of the, like, how do I want to put it? Where they talk about the mental side effects of like steroid use and stuff. Like, you have to realize that you can't look like you're on a gram of steroids when you're on 200 milligrams of testosterone. You can't, right? So yeah, I think it's going to be the general appearance, like the hardness, you know, like the pop in those kind of like details. But I'm obviously going to put on body fat too, which I want to. I'm too lean. Even things like doing like a bent over row, the bracing, it's like really, I feel like my core's compromising because I'm so fucking lean. So like little things like that, I almost look forward to, but I'm honestly, I'm not really sure, because when I was running just TRT, at the end of last week's episode, I covered this. When I just ran the 150 TRT, it took me all the way up to 218 pounds. So I really think that the goals kind of just sit between 215 to 220, you know, and then I think see what, you know, my TRT is going to be at, probably somewhere in the 150 to 175. Obviously, as the fertility medications come in, I'm going to be running FSH, a little bit of HCG, the pretty standard things there from a pharmacological intervention to restore testicular function and upregulate the Sertoli cell, sperm, you know, production, those sorts of things, and then just manage whatever estrogen related side effects I need, because HCG aromatizes in its own, and I'm already a little bit sensitive of an aromatizer just off of, you know, testosterone. So I'm just going to kind of have to wait and see. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to look like a superhero, but I don't need to. But I think I'm going to stay lean, do my cardio, and I want to find my like Aaron's dad kind of living at. But I think the plan will be, like 150, 175, you know, testosterone. Once we get back from the travels and stuff, I think I'm going to keep in at least 2 units of growth hormone. Right now I'm on 4. 2 is kind of like a a replacement dose. Like you can get like clinics and stuff will replace that. And it's really just the sleep. The sleep is so good. I don't get any like water retention or anything from it, and I do think it is well worth the spend, in my opinion, from just a quality of life thing, especially for people like, me and you, who we talk about, like, we're just not great sleepers. Like growth hormone, like I sleep through the night. It feels fucking great. And obviously that carries over pretty nicely. And then something that's really funny is I've had multiple in the last like month, 3 different women. And it's like, we're out with like me, Jenny, and like our friend or something like that. And I'm like, Aaron, what do you do for your skin? Like your skin is amazing. What do you do? And I'm like, it's the fucking growth hormone, right? Everyone keeps asking me this. No one wants to believe the answer. Like, it's literally the growth hormone. I don't have like some face routine or anything like that. Like, it's the growth hormone just
It's
makes
the
your
collagen,
skin
bro.
really,
You take
really,
your collagen every morning, right?
and like you just it works. It's very, very effective at collagen upregulation. There's no denying that. But yeah, so there's definitely, I find that's a very nice, like,
Okay.
TRT plus, whatever you want to call it, but things that could be literally prescribed.
So TRT
would be.
itself is not improving sleep. You think it's more the growth hormone that's improving the sleep?
For me, yes. That there's other people that would have different experiences, right? But for me, it was night and day from immediately when that growth hormone went in, where I would just started time traveling to the morning. And I'd be like, holy shit, this is incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Cool. And then last question, I think, is, do you and Jenny have a semblance of an idea of when you intend to kind of meander back to the US more permanently, or is that still kind of up in the air?
Q1 of next year. Yeah. So it depends on a few things. Obviously, like the market with the homes and stuff like that, what's available. If there's things that we like, there's a number of things, but anywhere from like late January to, I would say, early April at the absolute latest. So like January, February, March. And there's just a number of things that we've talked about, that go into that. Like, we're going to effectively move to Salt Lake, but we're going to go from like Bali, tropical island heat, to the dead of winter with no fucking winter clothes or anything like that, in a bare bones home that we just bought with nothing in it. So I was like, if we move in February, it might be kind of fucking miserable a little bit. We might be all hopeful and, bright eyed and bushy tailed and just get our asses kicked for the first like 3-4 weeks.
Yeah, April might be better, because at least then you only have a couple weeks of winter before things start getting nice.
Yeah, but we're just going to kind of play it by ear. And yeah, but that's what we're looking like, early next year. Yeah.
Sweet. That sounds good.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's just the big thing is really, which I kind of glossed over, is the fertility restoration. So, it takes about 90 days for new sperm cells to reach their kind of full maturity cycle. So October, November, December, that is my primary focus. I'm going to get labs when we're back in the States. I'm going to get a fertility test, sperm test when we're back, see where my levels are, monitor things, obviously, like motility, morphology, DNA fragmentation, all of these things. And then I have a pretty robust protocol that I have built with all these like redundancies and stuff. And now I'm just going through my sourcing methods of finding the things that I need and all that stuff. And I very, very, very much so look forward to this. I feel like it's either going to be this incredible conquest for me, or it's going to be like okay, some of the experts were right. I don't know what you were thinking you were just some internet bro who's going to be able to like sort this thing on his own. But we will see which side of that ship that I land on, for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's been a long time coming. I feel like when we first started the podcast now, like 5 years ago, you were joking about how Jenny wanted 5 kids and you guys needed to get started soon. And now we're here, and it's 5 years later, and we're almost about to start making kids. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Good times, dude. Well, I guess in my future, I don't know if I'm quite as concrete on exactly what I want to do here. One of the things that we've been flirting with and talking about a bit over the last few weeks has been all this internet craze around the new, I don't know, call it a new Beardsley model, but the Beardsley model that's out there right now of muscle fiber specific training. And the more I like read and invest myself into this, it starts to make like a little more sense to me, to the point that, like, while I still think it's a bit impractical for a lot of people, and I also think it's quite unnecessary. Like, you don't have to train in this manner to get great results, as we've seen through years of people doing bro splits and all these other types of splits that all seem to work. It does make sense at a mechanistic level, just to use a very general example, that if someone designed a routine where all they were doing was lat specific vertical pulling, that your upper back probably wouldn't get much growth. And if all you did was upper back wide elbow pulling, you probably wouldn't get as much lat growth. So if you just look at it from like that 10,000 foot view and you're like, cool, upper back trains upper back, lat work trains lats, then you start talking about the frequency piece and you're like, if it is such that a muscle needs to be trained every 48 to 72 hours to maximize growth, or to stimulate it before it begins to atrophy, then it would make sense that one would need to train each of those movement patterns each time you trained every 48 to 72 hours. I don't know that I'm fully buying into this, but from like a mechanistic standpoint, it makes sense that if you want a muscle fiber to grow, you have to train said muscle fiber. Now, their argument would be that if you're doing a bro split, you can still make progress because you essentially create all of the stimulus for, 72 hours before the atrophy begins. And then you have I guess what would be a 4-day, a 96-hour atrophy period before you get back to call it your chest day or your back day or whatever, and you train it again. In this way, like, you're creating enough stimulus that you're still moving forward. You just might be going like 2 steps forward and 1 step back, then 2 steps forward and 1 step back, where the theory would be that if you just train the muscle with a lower volume, but you were to do it every 48 to 72 hours, you could essentially just stimulate that muscle and never have to deal with any of the atrophy that occurs. So even if you're not moving as far forward, so maybe you're not taking 2 steps forward, but you're also not taking 1 step back. So maybe you're taking 1 step forward 3 times a week instead of 2 steps forward and 1 step back. So your cumulative amount of stimulus or growth that you're able to achieve throughout the week would, in a sense, be amplified through doing less work more frequently. Again, I don't know if I believe in that. I'm intrigued by it. And I haven't done anything as far as like my pursuit of lifting weights, growth, hypertrophy, strength, whatever. I haven't really made that a huge focus of mine for the last couple years. So there's a sense of me that feels like once bike season ends here in October-ish, that maybe I start to implement something like that for 3 months, 6 months, and just kind of see what happens. My concern is that the impracticability piece of it combined, maybe it's less impractical and more just monotonous, because the idea with having to train the same muscle fibers every 48 to 72 hours essentially requires one to set up a split where you're either on one extreme doing an upper lower that's 6 days a week, so that you have like upper every 48 hours and then you have lower every 48 hours. And of course the volume would be like super low in these sessions. So I could probably get in and out in like 30 to 45 minutes, but it would be every single day. That split kind of speaks to me a little bit more, especially if I'm not doing a ton of cardio. The other alternative, the one that the Beardsley crew and this guy Jake, who works with Beardsley, the big one that they recommend that kind of is like, hey, you can't really fuck up if you do this split, is an AB, full body. So you would have like an A session on Monday, full body, then you'd have a B session, full body on Wednesday, and then on Friday you would get back to the A full body session. So essentially every 4 days you're hitting the exact same muscle fibers again, which keeps you right on the outskirts of that point where they believe atrophy would begin to occur. I have never been good at doing full body splits. And like the part of me that doesn't want to train 6 days a week feels more pulled toward doing the 3 times a week full body. But I know that every time I've done that, I've ended up splitting that 3 times a week full body into an upper lower simply because it's just too daunting for me. And especially with this approach that they have where you just want to do like the smallest amount of stimulus and then repeat that 48 hours later, that essentially means that for lower body work, you're spending all of this time like ramping up to one top set. So on my like leg press machine where I'm doing 600 pounds, I have to do like a 200 warm up, then a 300, then a 400, then a 500. Okay, now I get to my work set at 600. Well, I've done 5 sets. I've wasted 5 sets of time to do one working set. And so in some ways that seems quite impractical to me as well. So all of that basically rant or monologue to say that I'm not entirely sure where I want to take this or what it's going to look like, but I am intrigued by this muscle fiber specific idea. And I think that it would be an interesting experiment to kind of put out there and let people kind of follow along and see how it's going.
I mean, I love it. I hope you do decide to move forward with it, because I'm excited, you know, in full transparency for my own selfish reasons for us to talk about it. But I think I love how you explained it, and I think it's part of the reason why I love having the podcast with you, Bryan, is because you're so good at taking this like theory thing, right? And I love, I don't think I should say love. I am a fan of like Beardsley and stuff, but one of his like big criticisms, which I think was very aptly put by Lyle McDonald, is Beardsley is a fucking theorist. is I think what he said verbatim, which I kind of agree with. And then I think the theory is sound. It breaks down in like the human practical implementation side of things, which is effectively where everything breaks down, right? You know what I mean? So it's like a lot of things work in theory, like, for example, the macro, like the AI algorithms, like, oh, you overate on the weekend. No worries. We just reduce your calories by 30% Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? That works in theory. Where it breaks down in like the human practical side of things is because now that we're so hungry Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to pay for our sins of the weekend, we end up repeating the sins of the previous weekend, and it just becomes this vicious cycle until you're like, I can't fucking do this. You know what I mean? So like there are lots of things that the theories are sound, but the practicality of it breaks down. Like that AB program, the type of person that I think that would work for is someone who's not as strong as you, right? You know, like that ramping up to 600 pounds on that leg press, like that's a lot of fucking work to get to that one top set. Like it's a lot of time spent for this like shorter duration, you know, full body,
Right.
abbreviated kind of session. And they go, oh, well, that's, you know, that's not for you. That's for the person that's not as strong yet. But the person that's not as strong yet probably doesn't need the optimal based program that's worrying about atrophy setting in after like 4 days. Like they just need to actually track their food, understand nutrition, train hard, and progress over time. So again, I said, I hope you do it because I'm interested to see, but I think it's one of those things where it's like, it's great on paper. Lots of things are great on paper, but the human psychology is this very interesting, you know, layer on top where a lot of things, I don't want to say break down, but become less practical because of the complex nature of being a human being.
Yeah, I mean, dude, you bring up so many good points. I love the analogy with nutrition and the 3 days of cutting calories from the AI algorithm. It's very well stated. And I also think another hesitation I have on accepting this, at least where I am in my journey, aside from what you noted about, you know, having to build up to all these sets, which in itself is kind of impractical because if you think about, if you have 2 quad movements and 2 hamstring movements, say it's a leg press, an RDL, a leg extension, and a leg curl. The leg extension and leg curl I can build up to in 2 or 3 sets, not a big deal. But it 5 sets to build up to the leg press, and then it's probably 5 sets to build up to a heavy set of RDL as well. So by the time I've done my one top set on my 4 different leg movements, to me that feels like I've done a complete session. Like that could be 45 minutes of just doing my one set of each leg movement. So I think there's a large kind of psychological and CNS fatigue that comes from just being in the gym doing that many sets that require that much kind of internal focus. And if I'm being completely honest, like, I don't know that this is optimal, but I find sometimes just training 2 body parts in a day is really the place where I get the most stimulus with the least fatigue. Because there's something about like even training the full upper body together. There's a point where like I finish my chest, back, and shoulder work, and I'm like, man, like I'm crushed. Like even my arms feel crushed, and I haven't trained my arms yet, but now I'm supposed to go and like do all this arm work. And same thing with legs. Like by the time I've done my main quad and my main ham movement, it's like, do I really have energy to go do abs and calves and then do some like isolation work for my legs and all this stuff? And it starts to feel a bit daunting. Whereas when I organize a routine that's 2 muscle groups per day, I can really go in, provide extreme focus, hammer those 2 muscle groups. And then when I leave the session, I feel the stimulus locally on the areas that were trained and not systemically, of this sense of just being completely systemically crushed where I just want to sit on the couch and like stare at my phone for the next hour or something like that. So there's like that element going into it too. And I don't want to commit to doing this thing that I'm talking about because I think it's very possible that I get into it and I'm like, no, this is too daunting. It's too much frequency. My body can't handle this. And then to add even another element into it, I think there's the very real factor that the genetic limit is just a thing that you're going to get to, and that I'm probably within a percentage point or so of being there. And so if a bro split gets me 2 steps forward and 1 step back and 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and I'm making progress really, really slowly, but this full body AB gives me progress a little bit faster, we literally might be talking about me moving from 99 percentile to like 99.3 percentile or 99.5 percentile. And it's like, even if this program is the best program out there for me, I could be at a point of my journey where it just doesn't really make a difference, which then takes me back to like, fuck, I should just be training in a way that feels good to me and like doesn't feel daunting and allows me to, you know, go in, stimulate my muscles, go on with life, be a good parent, bike, run, whatever else, and just kind of not be obsessed with it. So that's my train of thought, and I don't know which direction I'm going to go.
I mean, all incredibly relevant points. For something to push you outside your bounds of the other indirect external factors, the return needs to be great enough, right?
Yeah.
Like like, let's say you work whatever, you work 10 hours per week, right? And you make whatever, $20,000 a month. If you work, and that's at 10 hours per week. If you work 15 hours per week for an increase in 50% of your work hours, but instead of 20,000, you make 22.5. Are you going to do that? Probably not, because it's not worth the additional, like that 2.5K once you're making 20, probably not worth working 50% more, right? So there needs to be enough of a delta increase in reward to warrant the impact to the other factors.
Yeah. I almost wonder if the analogy would be like, you're making 20 grand for working 10 hours a week, and you could work 20 hours a week. So you could double it to make $21,000 or something like that. Like, I think the margin is even smaller. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. My margin was probably too favorable, but yeah, I think the margin would be small. And how do you accurately quantify it? You know, like it's really hard, especially at that advanced level. Like, I think unfortunately at the advanced level, to really quantify progress, you need to get to extremes, right? In a very recent example, Brandon Kempter, was just competed when I won my pro card. He won his. Brandon was in equal condition from his prior season. He was 4 kgs heavier on stage.
Wow.
I think maybe just under 4, like 3.7 or something
That's
like that.
That's amazing, though. That's very impressive.
That's amazing progress. But it took all those years and getting to stage condition again to be able to quantify that. But it's a very large endeavor. And unfortunately, like even like a DEX scan or something like that, there's still variables, right? You're still relying on a tech or a calibration or a software update or something like that. Whereas like stage condition, especially when you're a veteran, and like stage condition is stage condition, right? There's very objective markers of like stage lean, photos, what's the feathering in the lower back look like, and all of those things. And then what's my weight, that morning or right before stage or something like that. So it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually was going to bring up the DEXA example too, because, as we went over on one of these episodes, I've done 3 DEXAs and 2 of them were similar to each other. And then the third one was like a complete outlier that wasn't similar at all. And so my level of trust on a DEXA to be able to pick up on, did muscle fiber specific training make a big difference in my physique at 43 years old? I wouldn't trust that to do that. So it's hard to, like you said, to quantify. And I just honestly, a lot of this has been mental masturbation talking to you about it. And I think I went into this episode thinking that I was going to give it a try. And now that I've actually talked myself through this with you, I find myself leaning back toward the side of like, dude, I'm so close to my genetic ceiling anyway. I really should just train in a way that like speaks to me and feels good and not try to do one of these crazy experiments. Which then brings me up to the second thing that I'm considering doing, which I also alluded to on the Instagram Q&A last episode, which was this idea of potentially getting my body weight down to like 180 and trying to make that my homeostasis. And we have our buddy Dave McConey, who has literally just done this. Like he and I were about the same size, like mid 190s, as like kind of a chill homeostasis place to be. And he just wrote us in our group that he got down to, I think he saw a weigh-in at 172, but his normal like average weight was 175. So he literally has, over the last year, created a homeostasis for himself under 180 pounds. And he looks great. And I'm sure he's feeling like much better. And I just wonder, because I've been this size for so long. I just wonder if I would move better through the world and just, be healthier, sleep better, have more energy, be faster in my cardio work, like all of these things that could potentially play into the equation if I were to get my body weight down at more of like a homeostasis level. And obviously the problem there that's insinuated is that I would probably have to sacrifice some muscle. Like, if I were to do it with just body fat, I think I would reach a point where I would then just start eating back up again, because I would still have all this muscle that needed to be fueled. But if I were to lose a little bit of muscle, maybe I could make that more of a homeostasis. I'm not really sure there. Every time I've gotten to 180 in the past 5 years, which has happened, 3 times, it's been something where I get there and then immediately I just can't control my appetite and I'm building myself back up again. So I'm not sure what that looks like to get there, but that's another kind of thought in my head is seeing what happens to like just life in general at a lower body weight.
Yeah, honestly, it's a very interesting approach, because I mean, you might have to do like literally some detraining. You might have to take like a couple months away from lifting and let some atrophy happen.
Yeah, I wonder if I can just do it with diet though, and like maybe just like diet and like a little more cardio. I don't know, man. I do have like a decent amount of body fat, like at 15-16% at say 195 pounds. Like in theory, if I were to lose all body fat, I would get down to 180 at 9% body fat. That's obviously like really, really lean and probably not sustainable. But I also like the thought of sacrificing muscle on purpose is kind of a bit of a like dagger to the heart,
I know it seems very counterintuitive, but I think I think you kind of just walked through my answer, and because if you're like, oh, well, just I'll get super lean at like 180, and it becomes unsustainable because your body fat levels are too low, and you're still above your target homeostasis. And how do you get body weight down from there when hunger's high, when food focus is high? you have to drop muscle to do it.
I mean, I agree. I think I would just I'd like to be a little bit leaner than I am now if I'm going to go to 180. Like, I'd rather just not be 180 but have the same physique I have now and just be a smaller version of my 15% body fat self.
Yeah, that's like worst case scenario. Yeah. And I think there's also too like those I think probably some of those like that fear stuff in the back of the head that's like, oh well, as you get older, like muscle mass is like really important, and then like we're like, but I have it, so I want to keep it, but you're on the very high end of the spectrum, so like they're not talking about you.
Yeah, I don't need all the muscle mass I have. Like, I could be 180 pounds, and even if I was the same body fat I am now, 180 pounds at 15% body fat would still be well above average as far as like the population.
Well above. Yeah.
So I don't know, dude. Those are two very different things. And I guess I didn't tell the people exactly what I'm going to be doing, but I threw out some possibilities, and I'll just kind of continue to update as the time goes. I still have another month and a half of being able to bike outside and kind of pursue the cardio stuff, and then kind of decide if I want to make a switch to more focused strength training into the winter, or if it kind of will be more like last year where I picked up running and I was running 3 or 4 days a week, and I was lifting, 2 or 3 days a week. And that was great. I maintained and it was perfect. So I just don't know if I want to make that switch back to being like full-time strength training enthusiast, or if I'm really kind of going to stick with this balance of cardio and strength training a little bit more.
Yeah, and I'm gonna find a little bit of a balance, train less, a lot less for like the first time I think ever in my life. See how I handle it, see what my body does, obviously share and stuff. I'm excited just to eat like I've just been like craving like just balanced, nutritious food, which is like really wild. Like I keep telling Jenny, I'm like, I can't wait to go back to the States, and I'm going to get lean ground beef and avocado and rice and kimchi. And like, and I'm like, I have this like meal plan already all made for like when we're back. And like, I'm going to have fucking ground beef, rice, and avocado and kimchi every night for dinner. I'm like over the fucking moon about these like basic, just like nutrient dense foods. But I am really excited just to have a little bit more, I guess, like balance in my life, and be able to prioritize, some of the people that have been, I shouldn't say neglected, but I've been incredibly time selfish and stuff. And I'm very excited to pour back into others after this show and stuff is wrapped. So.
Yeah, dude, that sounds great, man. I'm excited to follow along on your journey as well.
Yeah. All right, guys. So hopefully this was a cool little different episode. Any questions, you can ping either of us or on YouTube. And if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, we are getting pretty close to 1,000 followers. It would just be a little bit of street cred for us to bump over that number so we could be cool kids. So if you guys are not following Eat, Train, Prosper, subscribed on YouTube, give us a subscribe, please, or a comment for the algorithm. Very much appreciated from Bryan and I. I think we're going to record next week. It will not release until after because of some travel stuff. And then we'll have, I think, 2 episodes in September because of obviously wedding show and a lot of the things that we outlined in the intro of this episode. So Bryan and I will talk to you guys soon. Have a great day.
Sweet.